Welcome to Woodbee's Carpool Movie Critique, where each week, Kelley, Remi, James, and I check out a new movie and critique it on our carpool ride home. This week we saw The Darkest Hour. James?
I really enjoyed it. From a historical standpoint, I really don't approve of when movies covering historical topics just kind of butcher history. For the most part, this did pretty good. It stuck to the story pretty well. There are a few things in there which just didn't happen, like the whole scene on the tube, not based on fact really at all.
Seriously?
Oh,
it's a shame. It's so nice and everything, but not real.
It's like one of the pivotal scenes of the movie.
Right, exactly. And
Traumatized.
I guess you can almost forgive them for that, just for the sake of making it an interesting film. I think they also they made, make no mistake, Britain was in peril in 1940, but they made it seem really bad. Like the entire armed forces was about to be destroyed. Like they were about to sue for peace. It wasn't quite that drastic.
There were a couple times when their military personnel were saying that it was very, very drastic, and you in the theater were like, no, it's not. and then Winston agreed with you and was like, well, actually,
Are you Churchill?
Yeah, and that's something else. It was very, very minor, but it was kind of implied by the supporting characters that Winston didn't fully appreciate how a war was supposed to be fought. Let's not forget that Winston Churchill himself fought in 2 wars prior to that, one of them being a world war, and understood that pretty well.
They did make him look a little cuckoo.
They did. They did, yeah, but then again,
his ideas were.
Yeah, let's be honest, he wasn't the world's best politician in war or out of it. But he was the one they needed at the time.
That makes sense.
What do you think about the casting?
Casting, I think, was terrifically done. My most favourite examples, actor I'm really enjoying seeing at the moment, Ben Mendelsohn as King George VI. I thought that was a terrific choice. Bears some physical resemblance, and for the most part, he got the voice down. He got the stuttering, the speech impediments.
So was the speech impediment historically accurate?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the upper crust did have that kind of weird WR sound, and theories are that because the royal family for a few hundred years had been descended from Germans, or had a lot of Germans in the family. That kind of like weird WR sound in their pattern of speech comes from the and sounds in the German language, and it just became fashionable among the upper crust to kind of like emulate.
So that was on purpose.
Yeah.
Oh.
And as you all know, King George VI did have trouble speaking, which is why we had the film The King's Speech. Other casting choice I thought was brilliant was Kristin Scott Thomas as Clementine Churchill. Genius choice. Yes. She's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Small role, but she brought so much to it.
Oh yeah, I mean that was
fantastic.
It was Clementine Churchill easily, and I really enjoyed the dynamic between her and Gary Oldman, who again, fantastic casting choice. Yeah. Didn't think he would pull it off. Not quite as good as my favourite Churchill portrayal, which is Albert Finney in Gathering Storm. That being said, Gary Oldman physically became Churchill in that film, which was phenomenal.
And that's what I'd like to talk about. So Gary Oldman brought Kazuhiro, oh my gosh, I'm going to mutilate his name, Kazuhiro Tsuji out of retirement. So he's the man who's known for prosthetics and makeup. He turned Jim Carrey into the Grinch Who Stole Christmas. He worked a lot with Guillermo del Toro. So he was behind Hellboy. Also, Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
Oh, that was good too.
Basically, every example you can think of where you're just blown away by a transformation.
So not J. Edgar Hoover.
But
those were some bad jowls. Here we saw good jowls.
Good job.
These were amazing jowls, and I mean, Gary Oldman did not put on weight for this. It was all prosthetics, and I thought it was sensationally done, and I really hope that he gets an Oscar.
prosthetics?
Mhm.
Good grief.
Prosthetics and makeup.
Even
incredible.
yeah, and you know it's good when actually they zoom into the makeup and it still looks believable. That's what
Right.
impressed me
I
the
was
most.
looking for edges the
Exactly.
entire time, and I did not
Exactly.
see any. I think in a movie like this, I mean, well, in any movie, to make it good enough for Oscars, I mean, you have to have everything. You have to have writing, you have to have good direction, good cinematography, good acting. I mean, every single part has to be good. I mean, the lighting in this is spectacular because there's so many dark scenes and they lit them well. But it all begins with the writing. And when you're rehashing a political figure who has been represented so many times, you have to bring it to life with the writing first. The writer's name is Anthony McCartan. He's from New Zealand originally. He's been nominated once before for writing The Theory of Everything, but
that was
good.
not a lot from him before that. But I really think that he did a good job. One, of bringing a new life to Churchill, because we've seen him so many times. And the second thing is, for people who are not historical buffs, historical dramas can be tiresome. And he brought a very nice pace. I mean, that plus the music, plus the acting, I mean, it kept me awake and intrigued the entire time. But it really does start with the writing, I believe.
I agree. I completely agree. Especially in a movie that is not carried by, explosions or
a lot of
action. It's extremely difficult to keep an audience captivated by just dialogue, and I think that really shows good writing.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good segue to what I want to talk about, which is basically this year at the Oscars we have two films that talk about essentially the same part of history. Like you have Dunkirk and you have Darkest Hour, and they talk about decisions about how to retrieve all these troops, and Dunkirk talks more about what happened on the soil. I will not vouch for its historical accuracy because I don't know enough. But I think it's interesting to see how these two movies approached the same topic. So for example, Dunkirk is more on the ground focused. It's more action focused, and you have very little dialogue versus Darkest Hour that is carried almost solely by the cast and the dialogue. And again, if you look at Dunkirk, you have no-name soldiers. You don't know those characters when you get into the movie, whereas if you are interested in history, you will know at least half a dozen people in the Darkest Hour movie. It's also interesting to see when it comes to war that one movie focuses on the soldiers while the people on the ground, while the other one talks more about the politicians, than the politics of it, how one decisions affects the soldiers that are essentially powerless in the face of these decisions. And I think that was interesting. And you can actually see those two differences in how these movies were nominated for Oscars. A lot of the Dunkirk nominations were for technical abilities, sound editing, actually visual editing, whereas a lot of the Darkest Hour nominations were more about what you see on screen, makeup, Gary Oldman. But it's interesting to see that they were both nominated for Best Movie of the Year.
True.
Also, interesting to see that Dunkirk was also nominated for Best Director, which
Good to see two.
I like Christopher Nolan.
Watched
But
Mental last night.
Did you guys get I got a feeling that Dunkirk and The Darkest Hour kind of played off of what Marvel does with their own characters having their own movies directed by different people but living in the same universe.
Oh my god, I think this is great. We should absolutely start, instead of a Marvel Cinematic Universe, the World War II Cinematic Universe.
Yeah!
I'm actually much more interested in that. I will not.
Yeah.
So I'm on board.
All right, on
Down.
that note,
Come
I
on,
think
Hollywood, get on with it. Let's do it.
on that note, I think we should reveal
Take
the
out
ratings.
The envelope.
The envelope.
Who's first?
Me!
James.
Timothy.
Jamothy gave, I almost said Dunkirk, The Darkest Hour. 4.8 Bs.
Can you do
4.8
0.8 of a B?
I don't think I can, but let's just say I
Let's make
can.
it happen. Yeah.
Okay.
My only complaints were the minor historical inaccuracies, and the soundtrack was a little off.
Really?
I found it to be too pervasive and a little too dramatic at some points,
Okay.
where I feel it was detracting from the cast.
Okay.
Fair enough. All right, Amanda, that's me. 4 Bs.
Nice.
I thought it was really well done. I liked the new take on Churchill that I haven't seen before. I loved Gary Oldman's performance, but I did not get as many feels as I did with 3 Billboards.
Who's next?
Ooh, indeed.
That's probably me if you have to unfold it.
All right, Remi.
And you know what? I did exactly the same as Amanda. I gave 4 stars.
4 Bs.
4 Bs. And for the same reason. The only part in which I felt anything was at the end, in terms of emotions. The rest of the movie was visually pleasing and interesting. And the last one is...
The last one, Kelley gave her Bs to that part of the car.
Oh.
Holy moly.
Kelley, 2 Bs. No movie without Oldman. She believes there would be no movie without Gary Oldman.
Wow, that is a strong take. I disagree with that strongly, but
Wow.
wow. Okay.
Wow.
On that note,
On that terrible surprise.
We can't all agree all the time.
Tune in next week where we'll have another Carpool Movie Critique.
And another massive disagreement.
yes.